Привет всем, с вами я, Janie, и это College Russian. Today I have a very special guest, and we are going to be doing a super fun new format of video called Teach Me My Language. So let's find out who is this new guest and why are we going to play this super interesting game. So this is Donna. She is a English teacher from Russia. So she is like me, where she's a not native speaker of English, but yet that's her profession. She teaches English for a living. I'm a not native speaker of Russian, and yet I teach Russian. So today we're going to get to know each other a little bit. We're also going to talk about the pros and cons of having a non-native teacher. And then we're going to kind of illustrate some of those pros of having a non-native teacher with a little game called Teach My Language, where I'm going to explain Russian grammar to Donna, and she's going to explain English grammar to me because I don't even know anything about English grammar. So stay tuned for that. That's coming a little bit later in the video. So Donna, tell me a little bit about yourself. When did you start learning English? Where do you live in Russia? Your hobbies and passions, etc.
Okay, hello everyone. So nice to see all of you here. Yes, as you already said, I'm Dana. I'm a native Russian speaker. I'm from St. Petersburg, and I'm a professional English teacher. As I have my certificate. I studied in London. I went twice to the US. So what was your question again?
So just tell me a little bit about yourself, just you as a person, your hobbies, interests.
Okay, so my main hobby is obviously the English language. That's my hobby. That is my life. Basically, that's my everything. But I used to be really into, not so much at the moment. I also studied the French language and the Spanish language. So yeah, studying languages, that's the best thing in life. Yes, I really enjoy doing this. And also my cats, my animals. I have 4 cats and a dog. Oh, I also enjoy watching true crime documentaries on YouTube.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, I managed to pick up lots of interesting words. They have nothing to do with the general English, like, words like parole, sentencing, capital punishment. I know these words now.
Yeah, hopefully you never have to use them.
Yeah, they will never come in handy. They will never come in handy, I hope.
Speaking of, have you been watching the news on the Long Island serial killer?
Yes.
Oh,
yes, it's
crazy.
unbelievable that it was solved, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, for 3 of the people, but remember, there's still like 8 other people that went missing. Like they didn't,
and even a child.
They don't have,
there was
So they've
baby
only
body.
proved, he's only being charged right now with 3 people. They suspect him in a 4th, but then there's still like 7 people that went missing during that time period. Anyway, that's a totally different video. But yes, I love that kind of thing too. Anyway, so tell me, have you ever been to America or like in an English-speaking country?
Yes, I went to the US with my friend. It was quite long ago. It happened in 2012, long time ago, more than 10 years ago. Yes, I visited 4 places. I'm not quite sure if these places, they are states. Yes, of course, they are states. So New York, is it a state or is it just a city?
No, it's a state, and then there's New York City. So New York City is in New York State.
So New York, it's a state and it's a city as well, right?
And interestingly, it's not the capital of the state. It's just the biggest city in New York.
And probably the most famous city
in the United
States.
In
the US. And I really, that is my greatest impression of the US.
New York City.
Yeah, if I ever were to go back to the US, I would go to New York.
So were you only in New York City?
No, not only. I also visited LA, San Francisco, and Las Vegas.
Interesting. Yeah. And so New York City was your favorite?
Yes, the architecture is incredible, and this famous atmosphere that everybody knows about, and lots of books and inspiration for many people comes from this atmosphere, and I think I managed to feel this.
Yeah, that's
And
interesting.
it coincided
Yeah.
with my nature.
That's interesting. I felt that same way my first time on Red Square, of just like, I can't believe this is actually happening. I can't believe I'm really here. You know, like it felt very surreal that, you know, like something you had seen in movies before and then you're actually there. Like that's just a crazy feeling.
And
So
how
I
many
remember,
times have you been? How many times have you been at the Red Square?
I mean, I lived in Moscow for a year and a half. So, and this is how old I am. This is back when they had internet cafes. So in the mall, there's a mall underneath Red Square. Like I can't remember what it's called, but there's a mall underneath Red Square, and there was an internet cafe in there. So I used to go there every week, once a week, to use the internet. Like that's how old I am. So once a week on Fridays after school, I would go to Red Square, go down in the mall underneath Red Square, and use the internet cafe. So,
and
yeah.
did you visit the mausoleum where Lenin is?
I did get to go, and it's actually really hard to go. It's only open for like 3 hours on Tuesdays or something. So
I've
I
never
got to
been
see.
there. I've never
Yeah.
been there. So is he really there?
I mean, we have no way of knowing, but it was just so cool because there's like these red lights everywhere, you know. And I'm a person that loves Soviet history, so again, that's one of those feelings of like, oh, I can't believe this is actually happening. I can't believe I'm here. The kind of thing you dream about, you know, and then it actually happens. And anyway, so yeah, I have seen Lenin. I have seen Lenin. If it is actually Lenin, I've seen Lenin. So yeah. And then you said you were. You haven't. And then you said you've been to England too. Tell me what you thought about England.
Yes, I've been to the UK twice. First time I went there as a tourist, maybe in 2008. And last time I was there, I started in an English school just to improve, to master up my level of English. It was just before COVID broke out. So I left London, and literally the next day, London was locked up. So I was lucky to leave. Yes.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then tell me, how did you feel about those British accents?
It's a very, I aspire to pick up, to be able to speak with the British accent, but but I can't, you know, I can't.
You mean received pronunciation, right?
Received
like the
pronunciation.
Perfect British. Yeah. Because not very many people actually speak with that.
Not many people speak, not many teachers around YouTube. And moreover, in the UK, as we all probably know, there are tons of dialects. And RP is like the benchmark, but not the only one. And I'm interested in all these accents, especially in Cockney.
They're so hard. I think you and I were talking when we were, you know, just talking the other day. Was I am a native English speaker. I couldn't understand like 50% of the people in Yorkshire County. I was in Yorkshire County, and I even my friends had to translate for me what his grandpa was saying. I couldn't even understand his grandpa.
And by the way, this is one of these difficulties that foreign students have to come across when they study English, right? Differences in American English and in British English. Yes, flat, apartment, cookie, biscuit.
Well, see, that's those are okay. Those are just words that are different. That's easy. What's not easy is the accent, like where I really cannot understand what they're saying. So, for example, when I watch the British TV show The Office, I have to watch it with subtitles. I don't understand a lot of what they say. So
I had the same experience. I tried to watch the American version of Office, and it was so easy for me to understand.
Isn't that interesting?
And British version of what are they saying? I need subtitles. Yeah, I understand.
So, I mean, and don't get me wrong, in the United States, you're going to encounter a lot of difficult accents. You know, I live with Brazilians, and they're always complaining about not understanding people. And so, you know, in the South, they have a really strong accent. Yeah. Anyway, and parts of Kentucky and things like that, they have really strong accents. So anyway, so you and I are both talking about, and we were commiserating, we were like feeling each other's pain. Because when you're a non-native of a language, what kinds of disadvantages or like what kind of discrimination do you feel like you get as a non-native?
No, the most discriminating thing that I experience is the employer pays me less than he would pay a native speaker.
Wow.
It's gruesome reality of Russian
That's
English teachers.
Yeah, that's, now that I think about that, when I was in Moscow, this is 2004, they just found me and they just paid me. Like, they're like, oh, you speak English, come teach at our school. And that's true. They paid me twice as much as the people who are trained. I was 20 years old. I didn't even have a bachelor's degree. And they paid me twice as much. That's interesting. Here in the US, it's not so much that problem. But what sucks is there will be a job description and it just says must be native speaker. So they won't even give me a chance to prove,
I think you, Jenny, you are let me call you a rare bird, right? Not many people in the US speak Russian, teach Russian, right? Not so many people can do this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and here, and I think all over the world, English teachers, they are in abundance. Can you say like this?
And in abundance.
Yeah. In abundance. In British word maybe galore. Have you ever heard this word? Galore? No.
There are teachers galore. Yeah, teachers galore.
There are teachers galore, English teachers galore. So an employer may pick up the best from the best. The choice is huge.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because like I said, here there will be all these job descriptions and whatever. It's just like must be native speaker of Russian. And so what's frustrating is, especially if it's a teaching job, and we're going to show this today in our little game we're going to play, sometimes the non-natives are the better teachers. Like I can't emphasize this enough. Just because somebody is a native speaker of a language does not mean they know how to teach the language. So, and that's an advice for all of you people out there that are trying to learn a language. Just because your girlfriend is from Colombia does not mean she's going to be able to miraculously help you learn Spanish. Same thing. I mean, I'm a living proof. My husband's Brazilian and I still can't learn Portuguese because nobody will help me. Nobody will explain to me how, why it was that way. Nobody can help me understand the weird exceptions and things like that. And so I'm just like, I'm very lost and nobody explains anything to me. Sure, they model it for me, but they can't help me like with strategies of how to memorize this, how to learn this. And so if you're a person who's choosing a tutor, a teacher, or a language partner, not all native speakers are good teachers. So, okay. So then give me an example of a time where you felt like you actually knew English grammar better than a native.
Not only grammar, even vocabulary.
Yeah.
A teacher better than a native teacher. I knew grammar better than a native teacher did. Actually, I don't meet lots of native teachers. So
or have you ever had to correct an English speaker's grammar?
That's so not only grammar. These examples I have. For example, the other day I said I used a so-called advanced word like epitome of something, and the native was epitome. Could you be more specific? What is epitome?
That's funny.
Yeah. And being an English teacher, I have to build my vocabulary. I have to know lots of advanced words. But when it comes to speaking with natives, they don't need my high-end vocabulary because they don't know some words that I know, high-end words, advanced words like epitome.
Yeah. And by the way, that actually happens with my husband all the time. He'll know things, he'll know expressions or words in English that I've never heard, or I don't know what they mean. And it's just because he sees the language in a different way. So he can see the more Latin roots in something because he speaks Portuguese. and then kind of understand the meaning of it. I can't. Anyway, I think it's really interesting sometimes when a non-native, they just see the language differently than you do. You just grow up with it. You don't know. You're not paying attention to it. So
it's also because we have to crack down on this vocabulary, because we have to get our certificates, and when we have to take our Cambridge exams, the examiner they wait from us to use this vocabulary while we're speaking, while we're writing our essays, or going through the listening section of the exam. So nobody give it. Probably I can't say this on YouTube. So nobody is interested in our further development, how, when we will use this advanced vocabulary.
Yeah.
Except for this particular exam.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so you're saying people, they study for this exam and then like they, zubrit or whatever, like to cram, and then they forget everything.
Yes, because not everything. If you work with students, you can't forget everything. You don't have this right, because you have to teach. But when I went to London the second time, I got the impression that everything that happens in a life of a typical Londoner, they express this just with one verb, which is get. If you know get plus something, you may feel yourself comfortable in British English in London. They express everything. They express everything with get, literally, from I want to go to the bathroom to I love you. They may express this with get.
That's funny. Anyway, yes, I was going to tell you there was this one time where I asked. Well, actually, I think we're going to illustrate this here with our little game that we're going to play. Is sometimes the natives they don't know why. They don't know why, and so they just know. They know how it is, but they don't know why it is, right? So anyway, so we're going to play this game. Look at this. This is super fun. We both created kind of sample lessons. So this is our game called Teach Me My Language. So I'm going to ask Dana a question about English grammar that I really don't know. So I didn't know there was such a thing as countable nouns and uncountable nouns. I've never heard of that concept. So she's going to explain to me. So something I've heard a Russian say before is, you cut your hairs. Okay. So that's super funny, right? Like, and that just, I know that that's wrong in English, but I don't know why. So why is that wrong in English?
So, hair, this is this specific ambiguous word that might be countable or uncountable. And it depends on the context. Typically, hair is uncountable. Hair that you have on your head, it is an uncountable noun. So I cut my hair. It means everything that you have on your hair, you cut. It's hair. It's a singular noun. Yes? But when we talk that you have hairs in your soup, for example, or in your ice cream, hair becomes a countable noun.
Because there's like multiple pieces. So could you actually say in Russian, я нашла два волоса? Or
of course, I can say this in Russian.
That's so weird. So yeah, in English, I mean, I guess you could say, two hairs. Like, ooh, there are two hairs.
You may count hairs that are in your bathroom, for example. When you wash your head, there are hairs in your bathroom, and you can count. Amazes me the most that you, English people, you also have a very typical, very everyday and commonplace nouns, which magically are exceptions. For example, like child, children, woman, women, not womans, but women.
Okay, but you have the same in Russian. Ребенок, дети.
Yes, we have.
Человек, люди. Брат, братья. Муж, мужья. Почему не браты? Почему не мужи? Right? So actually there's a reason for this. There's in historical linguistics, living creatures, animals and humans, they tend to be irregular in a lot of languages. Interestingly. So the more ancient a word is, the more likely it is to be irregular. Okay, so then I'm fascinated by this stuff over here, with the countables and uncountables.
Mhm.
Explain to me, do I need can I say an so can I say what were you saying the Russian word for it is, like определенный article or something like that?
Yes, I was saying about definite article,
Definite
определенный
article.
article, and indefinite article, неопределенный.
Okay, so can I say a plus a countable? Or can I say a plus an uncountable? So can I say
no. You can never use definite article, which is a or an, with uncountable nouns. You can never say a water or a what? A rice, a tea.
That's so
Tea
funny.
also
That's
depends.
funny. I've never thought of that.
Yes,
I mean, I
because
guess if you
a
were
means like
ordering,
one. A means one, right? More or
yeah,
less,
that's
it means
interesting.
one.
I've
But
never thought
also
about that.
water also may become countable. I may say something. Different waters come into the sea. Waters,
Waters.
different
Okay.
waters of different rivers. But when I drink water, I'm trying to
Yeah,
pronounce
you
this
don't
with the
drink
British
water,
accent.
huh?
Water,
You don't drink
water,
water.
water.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. But you can
Mhm.
say the water.
The water,
Oh,
yes.
can you? Can you say like the water?
Pass me the water. I
cheese,
mean, this specific
yeah, you
water
can.
that is
The rice,
next
like
to
when you're
me.
cooking. Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
Okay. But yeah, you
All
don't
this
say rice.
rice,
That's so
sugar, salt, they are
Yeah, that's
in their
interesting.
basic sense, they are all uncountable. So no F or N, only there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would never say sugar. I would never say rice. Interesting.
Articles, it's a constant headache for everyone who studies English. Russian, yeah, we don't have articles, so it's absolutely something new for us.
Yep. Okay, so here's my question I get from my students all the time. Во или во? So I'm gonna give you some, because you're gonna explain the rule to, like, you're gonna tell me what you think, and then I'll kind of write out.
Okay.
Okay. So how do I know? Do I need vo or vo?
Okay. Not only vo. I think we have k, ko,
Cool.
o,
So
ob.
so it's all the same. Yep.
Of course, I have no idea about this rule. I may only speculate.
Okay.
But I think it depends on the convenience, whether it is convenient to pronounce or it is not. Yes?
Okay. So give me some examples.
Let's say in Russian on Tuesday. Yep. In English on Tuesday, but in Russian во вторник, right? Во вторник. Try to say в вторник. How comfortable is it to pronounce в вторник? Is it comfortable to pronounce?
Нет.
No.
But yet there's в воскресенье. That is not comfortable to pronounce.
But we can see the vowel sound after в воскресенье. So we don't have this, nothing stops the sound in our throat. Can you see v, o? And in the first example, v, t, v, t. I think
so
that's...
you should see, because I think an English speaker would see this and be like, whoa, two v's, like two v, like that's super weird, Whereas
that's
like, for example, in English, and an, that's just before a vowel, right? And that it just, because it makes it easier to say.
Not always. You have a university, which is also, U is also a vowel, but you...
Same thing with Russian. That's why you don't say you wouldn't say something like ab yedia, right? Because we have a y sound, which breaks it up, right? Okay, so for example, we've got воскресенье. How about this? Мне.
Because it sounds smoothly, like, also very comfortable.
Because okay, so you were saying something about like we had a vowel sound. So how about we do this one? Школе. We do have two consonants together. We don't have a vowel breaking it up.
Yeah, we don't have it.
So what's happening there?
В школе.
Yeah, why wouldn't it be в школе? Because we have two consonants together. That's like there's no vowel. Школе.
I don't know, but I think the main reason is the convenience of the pronunciation. There can't be another explanation. Nothing works for me for here.
I'm trying to think. There's a lot of things that are really hard for us to pronounce. So for example, like what's this phrase of здравом смысле or something like that? That is for an English speaker, that's a nightmare to say. Like that's so hard to say. We have 3 consonants in a row. That is so hard to say. So why is there not like again, that would be a great place to put a vo in there.
You are torturing me. Tell me the rule. Come on.
Okay. Okay, here's the rule. So you kind of got it right on the first one. The rule is consonant cluster, so 2 consonants together, the first of which needs to be v or if. Во Владивосток, во вторник, во Флориде, во всех, вовремя. Да? Now, then you'll get a few exceptions left over from Old Russian, which are things like во сне, во имя Иисуса Христа. Those are all left over from Old Russian. Во сколько, for example. But that's it. That's the rule. If it's a consonant cluster, the first letter of which is either a v or an f. Crazy, huh? Right? Like you probably never noticed that in your life.
Absolutely. So, I have never thought about it.
And then it's the same concept with so, right? So you would say something like you wouldn't say с школой, like you wouldn't say со школой, рядом со школой. You would say с. But the second we get a consonant cluster, the first of which is either s or z, со сметаной. There we go. That's what it has to be, a consonant cluster that starts with a similar sound. Okay, so next one on this is what I think is interesting. So sure, we can learn verbal phrases in English.
Not verbal. No, there is a mistake on your slide. Phrasal verbs, not verbal phrases.
Oh, sorry. Why do I see again? I don't even know what these would be called.
I'm not surprised. Phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs.
Okay. So phrasal verbs. So what I want to know is what are your strategies for memorizing them? What do you do to try and memorize them? Because again, I don't know. I've never had to memorize verbal or phrasal verbs. I just know them.
Okay, I worked out at least 4 approaches how we may study phrasal verbs. I may tell you all of them if you want.
Okay.
So we may study phrasal verbs because the first thing you have to keep in mind that is absolutely impossible to study all of them. It's a utopia. Yes. So the first approach might be, so you study phrasal verb and you take the verb as the main thing. So as you can see, phrasal verbs, they consist of 2 parts. Yes, it's a verb and a particle. A particle might be a preposition, or sometimes I forgot an adverb. Yeah, an adverb, like run away. Away might function as an adverb and as a preposition as well. So the first approach, you study and you take the verb as the base. Yes, and you then put as many particles as you can see in this example. Run after, run away, run down. We have the one verb, but the particles are different, right? That is the first approach. But there are 3 more, according to my experience. The second is you may do this the other way around. Yes, you can take one particle, but different verbs. Am I saying this right?
Okay, I see what you're saying. So do go by, come by.
Come by, yes.
Run by.
Pass by.
Yeah,
what else?
you're saying.
Do up, do in, do without. No, that was the first approach. We have already talked about this.
Yeah.
Or you may study phrasal verbs depending on which job you are doing. Yes. So, or what sphere is interested to you. For example, let's think about phrasal verbs that have to do with, I don't know, house chores, like put away, put back, do up, do the dishes, take out the rubbish. Yes, it's a specific activity. And also you may take ordinary verbs and replace them with phrasal verbs. For example, like to visit or to come over, to rely on or to bank on. Yeah. Or happen or came about, right? Came about is
it came about. How did that come about?
It's the same as like happen, right? As happen. Happen came about. Yes.
Yep.
So yes, these are the basic approaches I can think of. For different students, different approach works. Everyone chooses.
So I was going to tell you, like, you know, in Portuguese, especially Portuguese speakers, they leave off. I thought it was a preposition, but you're saying it's particle. They leave off the particles completely, and it's extremely confusing. So, for example, my husband will say things like, "I need to drop my son," which what does that mean in Russian?
Don't drop your kids. Don't drop your kids. It's your husband.
No,
never.
Don't drop them. Or then the other funny thing is he can't figure out which part of the phrasal verb to put into past tense. So he said something like, "I already pick up him." Right. So I think that's interesting. How do you teach them the order? Because actually, so what would be the correct way to say that, right? Because I know as an English speaker that it should be what, but where should the him go?
Hold for a second. You know, with phrasal verbs, there is another very complicated issue because there are separable and inseparable phrasal verbs.
Oh, I didn't know this. Okay,
so you can. So I need to drop my son off, or I need to drop off my son. Can you see that the particle is moving?
Those are both. You can do those both.
Yes, you can do them both. But there are phrasal verbs that you cannot separate, like to get up. You can't separate this.
Yeah. I mean, okay,
wake
but
up.
You can get
no, wake up. You can. You can wake up. Get up. You can. Get on the bus. Can you separate this? Get the bus on?
No.
No, you can never do this.
How do you explain? And I would imagine for people from all different languages, it's so hard to explain to them. This him needs to come in the middle of here. You know what I mean? Like son. Anyway, that's interesting. And again, that's something I don't pay any attention to. I've never really noticed. So yeah, we were just talking about that. The separable and inseparable. And how do you know? How do you know if it's separable or inseparable? How do you memorize that? You just do.
There are no shortcuts. You study, you learn by heart. You know, when you're teaching language, I don't know whether you are going to share my opinion, especially when the student is at a low level. Some things he doesn't have to know. Just take it. Trust me. I know. I will teach. Later on, you will get into the swing of things. Because the more student knows, the bigger is his headache. How many things he will have to study. Do you agree with me on this?
Yeah, for sure. Because the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. You know what I mean?
You know nothing.
So, for example, but Russian has these too. So these are called словосочетания, right? So for example, подготовить кого к чему, да? Вот. Подготовить кого к чему. And again, if you put those into the wrong cases, you know, that can end up sounding really weird. Подготовить. But then I would tell students, okay, typically if we have the prefix pod, it very often gets paired with k, right? So I feel like in Russian is more organized than English. Russian, there's more of a system than in English. I don't know.
Think
Like
so.
English.
I have a completely opposite
Oh yeah.
impression. I think Russian is a chaos, whereas English is a strict and absolutely transparent. Everything has its own place. Not everything, most of things, they have their places.
That's so
I
funny. And
perceive
this will be a
English.
thing that we'll argue about in this series of Teach Me My Language, because I totally disagree. English is a total, like what is it? What's it called? Dvarnyashka or something? Like it's a mutt. It's a mixture of so many things, you know what I mean? And so it's like, and Russian is very, for the most part, yes, you will have exceptions, but they're usually pretty predictable when they're going to come. Anyway, okay, so this would be, if you were teaching Russian, this would be a common question you'd get from a student. What case is воскресенье in?
Are you asking me? Me, native speaker?
Yeah. So again, if you were a teacher, if you were teaching a group of students that are learning Russian, they're always going to be asking, what case is that? Какой падеж? Это в каком падеже стоит? What case? What case is that? What case?
I give up. I give up.
Okay. So interestingly, this is in what's called accusative case. Винительный падеж.
Винительный. Кого, чего? Кого, чего?
Что кого? Кого, чего is родительный падеж. So this is what I have to teach students is, even though in English we say on, so when we're learning Russian, we think, okay, on, in, and at, they all get prepositional case, but not always, because days of the week are getting accusative, which is why we say в понедельник, но в среду, в субботу, в пятницу. So when you hear those feminines going to uz, it's accusative case. And then the reason why воскресенье didn't change, because it's not a feminine singular. It's a neuter. And neuters don't change in accusative case. So вот такие дела. And then we were talking about how in Russian, we also have these concepts of, you can say really funny things if you put something into the wrong case. So like, if, for example, let's look at some of your phrasal verbs in English. If you were to use the wrong, I'm thinking of more like with get, as you were saying in English, they love. You can say some very sexual things if you're not careful, right? If you use the wrong.
Yeah, you reminded me of one phrasal verb, make out. Yeah. Make out has so many different meanings. Make out, yeah?
So funny, yep. Yep, make out, get off. Like there's a lot of these things that you gotta be careful because they can end up being sexual. Same thing with Russian though. If you use the wrong case, you can totally change the meaning. So он изменил жену means like, so this we're getting, again, you probably don't know your cases, but this is accusative case. So he changed his wife. I don't know, he forced her to do something and he changed her. Versus dative case, which is what's happening right here, which means what?
He cheated on her.
Like, he cheated on her, right? Yeah. So super funny things. And so, what we do at the advanced level of teaching students things is we just do these словосочетания. Касаться чего кого. Помогать кому чему. So at the end of all of my textbooks and worksheets that I create, I have a big section of, okay, so these are just the verbs that you need, right? Помогать кому. Скучать по. Советовать что кому, например. So again, I don't know, those aren't really called like phrasal verbs in Russian. They're called словосочетания. I don't even know how to say that in English.
And let me add something. Phrasal verbs and the Russian language. And every time a student starts to complain about how difficult is studying phrasal verbs, I'm saying, think about Russian language. We have more or less our so-called phrasal verbs. We have our приставки, because you have bring in, bring up, bring
so
down,
fun.
and we have
they're so magical. Yeah,
yes,
I love
присесть, засесть, прыгнуть, перепрыгнуть, запрыгнуть, отпрыгнуть, прыгнуть, and they are all different verbs. They mean different things, but they sound more or less the same, like your phrasal verbs. Yeah.
And you have to just memorize. Yep. And yep, that's one of my most favorite things is Russian prefixes, and then a certain prefix is going to force a certain preposition to be paired with it. So if you have something like vazit, it's got to be v. You can't just say vazit, like, you know what I mean? They need to be paired with things. So
we have cases and you have prepositions. You navigate your sentences with prepositions, and we do the same thing with cases.
Yep. So prepositions plus word order. Because if you change the word order in English, it's extremely confusing. We don't know who is doing what to whom. Right? So yeah. In fact, that's a funny story. One time I accidentally said something to my Russian friend. I was like, приезжай в гости, я тебя приготовлю. Right? And he's like, не приеду, я хочу жить. Right? So same concept of like, if you use the wrong case, or like in English, if you were to use the wrong preposition, you can totally say something completely wrong. But anyway, so that's all for today, but we're going to do more of these. If you found this amusing, it's just so fascinating how you don't usually, unless you're specifically trained in that, very few people are paying attention to their own language. Isn't that crazy? You're fluent, and yet you have no idea what's happening. And so we're going to keep doing more in this series with vocabulary and different expressions. And I think that's going to be really interesting for everybody. So if you have ideas of various interesting grammar questions in English or Russian, please leave them in the comments below, and we will include them in our next series that we do. So, ну хорошо, это все на сегодня. Спасибо тебе большое, Donna. Это было очень весело. И да, вот я уверена, что мы будем учиться многому друг у друга. То есть это будет весело продолжать вот эти видео. Спасибо тебе большое.
Я тоже на это надеюсь. Спасибо всем, кто был с нами сегодня.
Пока-пока.